this is Anna. Unfortunately, Melinda wasn't able to join us today. And I'm going to present our project, AssessNet project. This is a European Union funded Marie Curie project that aims to analyze teachers' beliefs, but also the assessment practices in virtual exchange. This presentation is, well, there is a direct link between this presentation and the topic of this symposium. First of all, so even though virtual exchange and distance learning are not the same, there are certain distinctive features between these two modes of learning. I really believe that our research findings can inform the design and the implementation of assessment in distance learning as well. And secondly, virtual exchange is essentially multilingual. Students sometimes use English or other language as lingua franca, but they are speakers of different languages, and very often virtual exchange projects are conducted using two different or even, well, two or more different languages. So
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry to interrupt. I just have to let you know that the technician will move the slides on for you. You just need to say when you need the next slide.
Right.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So multilingual practices take place in virtual exchange project as well. So this is a brief overview of the presentation. I walked you through the definition and the research so far in the field of virtual exchange. I'm going to introduce briefly the virtual our assessment project, and then we'll move on to research, the methodology and preliminary research findings. And also I thought it would be interesting to present you one sample virtual exchange project and present how assessment is addressed there. So here we have the definition of the virtual exchange. It's also sometimes termed as intercultural online exchange or telecollaboration. Still nowadays, especially in the European context, the term virtual exchange is preferred. And virtual exchange entails the engagement of groups of students in online intercultural exchange, interaction and collaboration with peers from partner classes in geographically distant location, under the guidance of educators and expert facilitators. And here in bold, I highlighted certain distinctive features of virtual exchange. So it's online, intercultural, students cooperate, they interact in a foreign language, or maybe in the native language. It really depends on the setup of a virtual exchange. And it's all conducted under the guidance of instructors. So it's somehow integrated integrated within some kind of learning program. And when it comes to research so far, it mainly focused on the impact of virtual exchange on the development of language competences, different aspects of language competences, intercultural skills, learner autonomy, digital literacies. Nowadays, virtual exchange is also being introduced in teacher education courses. Next slide, please. However, there is very little research conducted on the topic of assessment in virtual exchange. So even though assessment is by many practitioners considered as one of the most difficult aspects of virtual exchange. It hasn't been given sufficient attention in research so far. And why is assessment so problematic? Could you please go back to the previous? Oh, thank you. There are four main questions that we are trying to address in our project. The first one is what should we assess? In virtual exchange is a complex learning environment. So should we assess just language? If language, what aspects of communicative competence? There is an intercultural component involved. So should we assess it as well? If so, how? What about digital literacies and collaborative skills? So the construct is of interest here. The second question is how. So what tools should we use? Should we employ summative, formative assessment, and how to do it? The next question is same or different, and it refers to whether the students in both or in all partner institutions should be assessed in the same way, or is it possible to have different assessment procedures in different institutions? And finally, to what extent the virtual exchange is somehow recognized on the institutional level. So whether students need to be graded or they received an extra credit for their work. Next slide, please. Okay, so now a few words about the assessment project. It's a 2-year project carried out at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Next slide, please. Okay, and here we have the main objectives. So by means of a questionnaire, we investigate teachers' beliefs about assessment objectives and their assessment practices, and both in the questionnaire and in the interviews, we explored the 4 questions really. So what is assessed, how it's assessed, and also we are interested in the planning process, how the partners communicate to agree on some assessment strategies, and to what extent the assessment process in virtual exchange is recognized on the institutional level. And since this is a EU project and we are also practitioners, we are very much interested in practical recommendations. So we're going to publish a collection of good practices as a project output as well. Next slide, please. This is our website. It's important to know that this is open access project, so all the resources or all the publications are going to be available on our website. And next slide, please. So the methodology. So as I said, there was a questionnaire that involved both open-ended and closed-ended questions and interviews. Unfortunately, due to the current situation, the response rate in terms of the questionnaire was not great. However, we managed to encourage participants from 23 countries. They are all foreign or second language teachers at tertiary level, and they are pretty experienced teachers, both in terms of the years of teaching and in terms of running virtual exchange. And next slide, please. As we can see in this in this slide, the perceived level of training the teachers receive in terms of assessment is lower in comparison with other aspects of running virtual exchange. Next slide, please. And could you move on, and we'll come back to this slide later. Okay, so first I'd like to present you a sample virtual exchange project. This is not really a representative project, but I chose this particular project because it nicely illustrates different constructs that can be assessed in such a project, and also it offers a wide array of assessment tools or assessment ideas. So that was a course of business English, and the partnership involved 2 European universities. Students used English as lingua franca, and they communicated over the period of 8 weeks, both synchronously and asynchronously. And they were asked to do a number of subtasks in order to get ready for 2 main outputs of the project. The first one was preparing a professional CV, and the second one was getting ready for a job interview. The students' participation in the course accounted for 60% of the grade, and they collected the outcomes of the work in a portfolio, which involved a professional business report the students were supposed to write after each online session. So it was written by a secretary, appointed secretary. However, the group could contribute to the final report, and the teacher provided ongoing feedback on the quality and the language of the report. There were some reflective entries on the learning outcomes after virtual exchange, some reflections on intercultural interaction, intercultural exchange during virtual exchange, and also the professional CV that was later assessed by the teacher and by the peers. Here in this project, the interesting thing is that the job interview the students prepared for during the virtual exchange was assessed by professional recruiters. So as we can see here in this project, different constructs are addressed. So it's content, it's a language, it's interculturality, professional skills. So that's why I decided to choose this project. Could you move back to the previous slide, please? Okay, thank you. So now a brief summary of the results. So we've noticed that the assessment approaches in virtual exchange are highly diversified. They vary from institution to institution, but also from project to project. Teachers principally hold, like they believe in formative objectives and formative methods of assessment, and we could see that in practice as well. So they prefer assessment tools that encourage continuous reflective practice, formative feedback. When it comes to the content, the emphasis is placed on intercultural competence, intercultural skills and engagement in the project. However, the role of linguistic correctness, prolingual skills and fluency are downplayed. So even though, as I said, virtual exchange is very often plurilingual in nature, here it's not addressed in the assessment process. When it comes to grading, grading is not perceived as essential, but what the teachers observed, it enhances students' commitment. And on the institutional level, the parallel approaches to assessment in all partner institutions are facilitated, but are not essential to the success of the assessment process. So there are even projects in which in one partner institution, virtual exchange is voluntary, and in the second one, there is a very, let's say, rigid assessment scheme, and it's possible, but it depends on a number of aspects. So just to sum up, what we notice that in most cases, assessment reflects the objectives and reflects the defining features of the virtual exchange. So it's intercultural, collaborative, and it's oriented towards providing support to students in these complex learning environments. Thank you very much. That's all. And if you have any questions, comments.
Thank you. That was perfect timing. If anyone has a question, if you raise your hand, we can bring you up on screen, or you can type your question in the chat. We have a couple of minutes left.